President Donald Trump's proposed space-based missile defense architecture, branded as the Golden Dome for America, could ultimately cost approximately $1.2 trillion over a 20-year period, according to a new assessment by the Congressional Budget Office, CBO. The estimate is significantly higher than the roughly $175 billion figure initially cited by Trump last year. The ambitious missile defense initiative was authorized through an executive order signed by Trump during his first week in office. At the time, he stated that he expected the system to be fully operational before the end of my term, which concludes in January 2029. In the executive order, Trump argued that the evolving strategic environment necessitated the development of an advanced layered missile defense network. Trump stated, "For the past 40 years, rather than lessening, the threat from next-generation strategic weapons has become more intense and complex with the development by peer and near-peer adversaries of next-generation delivery systems." The proposed Golden Dome architecture is envisioned as an integrated defense network combining both ground and space-based assets capable of detecting, tracking, intercepting, and neutralizing missiles during multiple phases of flight. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes why Golden Dome, estimated to cost $1.2 trillion, may have major limitations. Before we proceed, a word on NordVPN, which is one of the most trusted and fastest VPN brand that has a no-log policy validated by Deloitte. NordVPN provides a 256-bit encrypted tunnel that protects your privacy and also enables you to access contents that are blocked based on geolocation. Its threat protection system helps you avoid phishing, scams, and malware. NordVPN application is available for all the major platforms as well as browsers. Get an exclusive NordVPN deal with massive saving by going to nordvpn.com/defense or clicking the link in the description. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. CBO has released a detailed cost assessment for what it describes as a notional National Missile Defense System, NMD. The estimate of approximately $1.191 trillion is more than double the projection the CBO presented last year. CBO's latest estimate explains up front, the analysis is based on the objectives laid out in the President's executive order titled the Iron Dome for America. The Department of Defense's DoD's implementation of that order, an initiative now called the Golden Dome for America, GDA, is in the early stages. Although documents from DoD's budget request for the 2027 fiscal year provide 5-year projections of funding plans for GDA, details about what and how many systems will be deployed, the objective architecture, have not been released, making it impossible to estimate the long-term cost of the GDA system being contemplated by DoD. In the absence of specific plans for GDA's objective architecture, CBO has estimated the cost of a notional NMD architecture based on the defensive systems and capabilities that are called for in the executive order. CBO's assessment adds, DoD's stated cost appears to cover a shorter time frame than CBO's analysis and may reflect a different scope of activities and budget categories. Even so, that stated cost is far lower than CBO's estimate for a notional NMD architecture consistent with the Iron Dome executive order. That difference suggests either that GDA's objective architecture is more limited than CBO's notional NMD system, or that DoD expects significant funding from other accounts to contribute to GDA, or both. For example, procurement of interceptors might be funded directly through the service's missile procurement accounts instead of the GDA fund. CBO's assessment categorizes the proposed missile defense architecture into 6 primary elements: a space-based interceptor constellation, upper wide area surface sites, lower wide area surface sites, regional sectors, self-defense enhancements for 4 existing surface sites, and a dedicated space-based satellite constellation designed for target tracking. The report also incorporates a separate category for various ancillary and support-related expenditures. The surface site and regional sector components are largely centered on expanding existing land and sea-based missile defense capabilities, including systems such as Aegis Ashore, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD system, and the Next Generation Interceptor NGI. The single most expensive component identified in the CBO projection is a newly developed constellation comprising 7,800 space-based interceptors. According to the report, the acquisition cost for this capability alone is estimated at approximately $723 billion, with an additional $1 billion annually required for operations and sustainment, totaling another $20 billion over a 20-year period. Altogether, the space-based interceptor layer would account for roughly $743 billion, representing approximately 60% of the overall projected $1.191 trillion program cost and nearly 70% of the anticipated acquisition expenditures. The CBO also provides a detailed breakdown outlining how it arrived at these cost projections. According to the cost assessment, the average cost per SBI, space-based interceptor satellite, would be $22 million. That average is for the initial 7,800 SBIs, as well as the nearly 1,600 SBIs that would be needed each year thereafter because of the satellite's short 5-year service life. The need to periodically replace SBIs means that the acquisition costs would be spread over the life of the system. The total is based on a cost of $500 per kilogram to launch the SBIs into orbit. As per CBO, even with this enormous level of investment, the space-based interceptor layer would only be capable of engaging 10 targets simultaneously. CBO explains that very large number of SBIs needed to engage just 10 targets is because of two factors: need to be in low Earth orbit, LEO, and short service life. It explains, to be close enough to reach their targets within the 3 to 5 minutes available in the boost phase, SBIs must be in LEO at altitudes of roughly 300 to 500 kilometers. However, the characteristics of satellite motion in LEO affect the size of constellations meant to provide continuous coverage over specific locations on Earth. Viewers may note, in this concept, each SBI is essentially an armed interceptor satellite placed in orbit. The assessment adds, satellites in LEO cannot be fixed over specific points on Earth. They orbit in a band centered on the equator and bounded equally north and south by their orbital inclination. Therefore, constellations of many SBIs are needed to ensure that a sufficient number, for example 20, if 2 shots are needed against 10 ICBMs, are always close enough to potential launch locations to reach targets during the boost phase. CBO also notes, because atmospheric drag at the altitudes at which SBIs would orbit causes their orbits to decay over time, each satellite would need to be replaced roughly every 5 years. For CBO's notional constellation, roughly 30,000 satellites would be needed to keep 7,800 in orbit for 20 years. The U.S. Space Force is already leading the new SBI program with a stated goal of demonstrating a relevant capability integrated into the larger Golden Dome architecture by 2028. Space Force has already awarded deals with a combined value of $3.2 billion to 12 companies for SBI-related work. Several firms, including Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Anduril, have already announced work on prototype interceptor designs. Congress has already allocated approximately $24 billion toward the initiative, but there are major concerns. The cost estimate stresses, although the notional NMD system analyzed by CBO would be far more capable than defenses the United States fields today, it would not be an impenetrable shield or be able to fully counter a large attack of the sort that Russia or China might be able to launch. As a result, the strategic consequences of deploying an NMD system with the capacity considered here are unclear because they hinge on an adversary's perception of the defense's capability and how that adversary chooses to respond. The assessment notes, such a deployment could prompt regional adversaries to increase their inventories of long-range missiles or to pursue more effective countermeasures to improve their chances of penetrating the NMD system. Peer or near-peer adversaries could overwhelm CBO's notional NMD system with salvos of many missiles in a large-scale attack with their current nuclear forces. Although they still might choose to increase their arsenals of long-range missiles, both nuclear and conventional, to ensure they maintain that capability. The major issue is that while it will be very expensive, the system would be capable of defeating a relatively limited missile attack, specifically a single wave of 10 ICBMs, launched by a regional adversary, a term commonly used to refer to countries such as North Korea and Iran. However, the Trump administration has previously indicated that the Golden Dome initiative is intended to provide protection against a significantly broader spectrum of threats, including those posed by peer competitors such as Russia and China. Given that Russia and China have around 310 and 400 ICBMs, respectively, the proposed system looks inadequate.